Dr. Jasmine Vale pressed her gloved hand against the smooth, obsidian surface of the towering structure, her breath fogging the interior of her environmental suit. 3 months of excavation on Kepler 4 to be had led to this moment, standing before what appeared to be the most intact alien artifact ever discovered by human civilization. The structure rose nearly 200 meters from the planet's crimson surface, its crystalline walls humming with an energy that made her scanner readings fluctuate wildly. The electromagnetic signatures are off the charts. Professor Henrik Volkov's voice crackled through her comm system from the research station 2 kilometers away. His thick Russian accent carried barely contained excitement. Jasmine, what you are seeing could rewrite everything we know about pre-contact civilizations. Jasmine stepped back and adjusted her recording equipment, the twin suns of the Kepler system casting long shadows across the archaeological site. The ruins stretched for nearly a kilometer in each direction, but this central spire dominated the landscape like a finger pointing accusingly at the stars. Unlike the weathered remnants scattered throughout the galaxy, this structure appeared untouched by the passage of time. Henrik, I'm reading crystalline formations that shouldn't exist naturally, she reported, running her scanner along the base of the structure. Atomic composition suggests technology we don't understand. These aren't just ruins, they're still functional. The surface beneath her feet began to pulse with soft bioluminescent patterns, responding to her presence in ways that made her heart race. As a xenarchaeologist, Jasmine had spent her career studying dead civilizations, picking through the bones of extinct cultures. But this felt alive, aware, waiting. Careful, my friend, Henrik warned. Unknown technology can be unpredictable. Perhaps we should wait for the full research team before proceeding. Jasmine ignored his caution, drawn forward by scientific curiosity and something deeper she couldn't name. The patterns in the ground were forming recognizable shapes now, geometric designs that seemed to flow like liquid light beneath the crystalline surface. She knelt and placed both hands flat against the warm material. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Light erupted from every surface of the structure, cascading up the spire in waves of blue and silver. The ground beneath her hands grew hot, then burning, but she found herself unable to pull away. Something was pulling her consciousness deeper, connecting with her mind in ways that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Images flooded her awareness. Vast star maps showing civilizations spanning thousands of worlds. Creatures of impossible beauty and terrible power moving between dimensions as if walking through doorways. And beneath it all, a presence watching, evaluating, preparing for something that had been dormant for a millennium. Jasmine, your readings just spiked beyond measurement. Henrik's voice seemed to come from very far away. Get away from there immediately, but she couldn't move. Then, the presence in her mind was growing stronger, more defined. It spoke without words, communicated through pure thought and emotion. She felt its surprise at her touch, its curiosity about her species, and underneath everything else, a rising sense of purpose that chilled her to the bone. Who disturbs the long sleep? The voice resonated through her consciousness, ancient and patient and utterly alien. Who breaks the seals placed by the architects? I'm Dr. Jasmine Vale, she managed to think back. We're explorers, scientists. We mean no harm. There was something like amusement in the response, a little spark of organic thought. You speak of harm while standing in the heart of the evaluation protocol. Your kind has advanced further than anticipated. The light around her intensified, and Jasmine felt the presence examining every aspect of her being. Her memories, her emotions, her species history, all laid bare for inspection.
The scrutiny
Was invasive, but not malicious, like being studied by a scientist of unimaginable sophistication. Interesting, the voice continued. Your people have achieved interstellar travel, developed quantum consciousness interfaces, even began to understand dimensional mechanics. Yet you remain fragmented, violent, driven by fear rather than wisdom. We're trying to learn, Jasmine protested. That's why I'm here. To understand, to grow. Understanding requires testing. Growth demands challenge. You've activated the first protocol, a small one. The evaluation has begun. The structure around Her began to shift and change, walls reconfiguring themselves into new patterns. Deep within the spire, she could feel massive systems coming online after centuries of dormancy. Power sources that dwarfed anything humanity had ever conceived began channeling energy through crystalline networks that stretched deep into the planet's core. What evaluation? What are you testing us for? Your species stands at the threshold, as mine once did, as countless others have before you. Some prove worthy of ascension to the greater community of consciousness. Others, the thought was accompanied by images of dead worlds, extinct civilizations, the remnants of species that had failed whatever test this entity represented. Terror and wonder warred in Jasmine's mind as she began to understand the magnitude of what she had stumbled into. This wasn't just an archaeological discovery. It was humanity's final exam, administered by beings whose power transcended anything in human experience. I am Nyx. The presence introduced itself. Guardian of the threshold, keeper of the protocols. I have slept here for 1,000 of your years, waiting for your kind to develop sufficient advancement to trigger the evaluation. Your touch has awakened not just me, but the entire network. Around the galaxy, Jasmine somehow knew, other structures were beginning to stir. Ancient installations hidden on dead worlds and in the hearts of stars were receiving signals, powering up systems that would determine the fate of human civilization. Can I stop it? She asked desperately. Can I undo what I've done? The protocols once initiated cannot be halted. But you, Jasmine Vale, have become central to the process. Your genetic pattern, your mental signature, your quantum resonance frequency are now encoded into the system. The evaluation will test not just your species, but you personally as their representative. The connection began to weaken as Nyx's consciousness settled into its newly awakened state. The light around her faded to a gentle glow, but Jasmine could feel the entity's presence establishing itself in the structure, spreading through networks that spanned star systems. What happens now? She whispered. Now the true guardians wake. My siblings, my superiors, the architects themselves will take notice. Some will seek to test your worthiness through combat. Others will examine your cultural development, your capacity for growth, your potential for wisdom. All will judge whether humanity deserves to survive its adolescence. Jasmine finally found herself able to move, stumbling backward from the structure as feeling returned to her limbs. Her environmental suit systems were flashing warnings about radiation exposure and neural pattern disruption, but she was alive and apparently unharmed. Henrik, she called weakly into her CUM system. We need to contact Earth immediately. Emergency priority channels. Jasmine, thank the ancestors you are responding. What happened? The energy readings from your location registered on our orbital sensors. The entire research station felt the pulse. She looked up at the spire, now glowing with steady internal light that painted the surrounding landscape in ethereal blues and silvers. Somewhere in its crystalline depths, an ancient intelligence was sending signals across the galaxy, calling its siblings to wakefulness after 1,000 years of patient waiting. Henrik, we've just triggered something that's going to change everything, she said quietly. And I don't think there's any way to change it back. As if responding to her words, the structure pulsed once more, and in that pulse, Jasmine felt the attention of minds vast and old turning toward the small blue world she called home. The evaluation had begun, and humanity's survival now hung in the balance. Dependent on tests they didn't understand administered by beings whose power defied comprehension, she began the long walk back to the research station, each step carrying her further from the woman she had been and closer to whatever she would need to become to save her species. Behind her, the spire continued its ancient song, calling across the void two intelligences that had already begun to answer. The 1,000-year sleep was over. The testing had begun. And Dr. Jasmine Vale found herself at the center of humanity's greatest challenge, triggered by nothing more than a curious touch and the irresistible human drive to understand the unknown. Captain Rex Morrison stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiant, watching through the viewport as another evacuation transport disappeared into hyperspace. The past 72 hours had transformed from routine patrol duty into humanity's darkest hour. Across 17 star systems, ancient structures were awakening, and with them came ships that defied every law of physics humanity thought they understood. Captain, we're receiving another distress call from the Tau Ceti colony, Lieutenant T. Commander Jade Reeves reported from the communications station. Her usually steady voice carried an edge of exhaustion that matched how Rex felt. They're reporting geometric vessels emerging from what appears to be folded space. Rex nodded grimly. The pattern was always the same. Ancient ruins would suddenly blaze with light, space would tear open like fabric, and ships of impossible design would emerge to scan the local populations before moving on to the next system. No attacks, no communication attempts, just methodical evaluation that left entire worlds paralyzed with fear. "Set course for Tau Ceti," he ordered. "Maximum speed." Dr. Zara Okafor looked up from her mobile laboratory set up in the corner of the bridge, her dark eyes reflecting the exhaustion they all felt. As Earth's foremost xenobiologist, she had been working around the clock to understand the nature of the entities humanity now faced. "Rex, I need to show you something," she said quietly. "I've been analyzing the quantum signatures from the awakened structures. They're not just randomly distributed across the galaxy." She activated her holographic display, showing a three-dimensional map of known space with pulsing red dots marking each awakened site. Rex studied the pattern, his military training automatically looking for strategic significance. They form a network, he realized. Each structure is positioned to monitor specific regions of human expansion. Exactly. But that's not the most disturbing part. Zar manipulated the display, adding timeline data. These structures were placed over 1,000 years ago, long before humans achieved spaceflight. Someone was planning for our expansion before we even knew we wanted to reach the stars. The implications sent a chill through Rex's spine. Humanity's journey to the stars hadn't been driven by their own ambition alone. They had been guided, manipulated, led to this moment by beings whose foresight spanned millennia. "There's more," Zara continued. "I've detected quantum entanglement signatures linking all the structures to a central point. The source appears to be in the Kepler 442 system, where Dr. Vale made her initial discovery." Before Rex could respond, the ship's proximity alarms began screaming. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to bend and twist as a massive vessel materialized directly ahead of them. Unlike human ships with their angular, practical designs, this craft flowed like liquid metal, surface rippling with patterns that hurt to look at directly. "All stop," Rex ordered. "Red alert.
Ow.
But do not power weapons unless I give the order." The alien vessel was easily 10 times the size of the Defiant, but it made no aggressive moves. Instead, it simply held position as if waiting for something. Rex found himself thinking of Dr. Vale's initial report about the entity called Nyx. If that being was truly representative of what they faced, then this ship likely contained intelligences that viewed humans the way humans viewed insects. "Captain," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission. It's on multiple frequencies simultaneously, including some we didn't know existed. Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was nothing like Nyx's patient, almost gentle presence. This entity radiated power and barely contained violence, speaking in harmonics that made the ship's bulkheads vibrate. "Small defenders of the candidate species, I am Keth. Lieutenant to the Guardian Nyx, your vessel will not be harmed if you withdraw from this evaluation zone immediately." Rex stepped forward, drawing on every ounce of command presence he had developed over 20 years of military service. "This is Captain Rex Morrison of the Earth Defense Corps. These are human colonies you're threatening. We won't abandon them." "Threatening?" There was something like amusement in Keth's response. "Captain Morrison, if we intended harm to your colonies, they would already be empty space. We are conducting assessment protocols, nothing more." "Assessment of what?" "Your species' readiness for the next phase of existence. Some candidates respond to evaluation with wisdom and cooperation. Others respond with fear and aggression. Your reaction helps determine your final classification." Dr. Okafor moved to Rex's side, her scientific curiosity overriding the danger of the situation. "Keth, I'm Dr. Zara Okafor. Can you explain what you mean by next phase of existence?" The alien ship's surface pattern shifted, And when Keth spoke again, his tone held more respect. A seeker of knowledge. Dr. Okafor, your species stands where countless others have stood before you. You have achieved interstellar capabilities, developed quantum consciousness interfaces, begun to understand the deeper structures of reality. You must prove you can transcend your origins. And if we fail this test, the silence stretched. Long enough that Rex began to wonder if the connection had been severed. When Keth finally responded, his words carried the weight of civilizations. Failure means remaining locked within your current limitations until you destroy yourselves, as so many others have done. Success means joining the collective, becoming part of something greater than any single species could achieve alone. Before anyone could respond, space around them erupted with new arrivals. Human ships were dropping out of hyperspace in defensive formations, while more alien vessels materialized with the fluid grace that seemed to characterize their technology. Within minutes, two fleets faced each other across the void, neither side making aggressive moves, but both clearly prepared for battle. Captain Morrison, Admiral Torres's voice crackled through the communications system from the flagship S. Sovereign, what's your assessment of the situation? Rex looked at the alien ship hanging motionless before them. Its alien beauty somehow more terrifying than any weapon he had ever faced. Admiral, I believe we're looking at beings so far advanced beyond us that resistance would be meaningless. But they claim they're not here to conquer us. Then what do they want? Dr. Okafor activated her external communications array, broadcasting on the frequencies the aliens had used. Keth, our military forces are responding to what they perceive as an invasion. Can you help us understand how to prevent unnecessary conflict? Dr. Okafor, the evaluation is already underway. Every choice your species makes from this moment forward contributes to your final assessment. How you respond to the unknown, how you balance fear with curiosity, how you treat beings different from yourselves. All of this matters. Rex felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a physical burden. Every decision he made could influence the fate of humanity itself. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that could determine whether their species survived the next few hours. Keth, you mentioned that Dr. Vale is central to this process. Is she safe? Jasmine Vale has become the focal point of the evaluation. She is currently traveling to the heart of the network where she will face the primary assessment protocols. Her success or failure will largely determine your species' ultimate fate. The implications hit Rex like a physical blow. One woman, an archaeologist who had simply been doing her job, now carried the survival of human civilization on her shoulders. And she was facing that burden alone, somewhere in the depths of space where his ships couldn't reach her. Can we help her? Your help? Captain Morrison lies in proving that your species deserves the sacrifice she is prepared to make. The evaluation continues across all your worlds. Every act of courage, every choice to cooperate rather than destroy, every moment where you choose growth over fear contributes to the final calculation. Dr. Okafor stepped closer to the communications array. Keth, what can you tell us about the beings conducting this evaluation? What do they want from us? We are the remnants of species that successfully passed through their own evaluations long ago. We serve the architects, the first beings to achieve true transcendence. They created the evaluation protocols to identify species worthy of joining the greater community of consciousness that spans multiple dimensions. The alien ship began to pulse with internal light, and Rex could feel something changing in the fabric of space around them. The next phase of your assessment begins now. Your Dr. Vale approaches the heart of the network, where she will face these as oldest of the architects. What she discovers there will determine whether your species joins us among the stars or remains. Trapped in the cycle of self-destruction that claims most developing civilizations, as Keth's ship began to fade from normal space, moving into dimensions human sensors couldn't track, his final words echoed across the bridge with the weight of prophecy. Prove yourselves worthy of the gift Jasmine Vale is about to offer. The choice, as always, belongs to you. Rex stared out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, a single human woman was carrying the hopes and fears of an entire species into a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy. All he could do was ensure that if she succeeded, she would have a species worth saving to return back home. Ambassador Linchana Kimura materialized on the crystalline platform at the heart of the network. her consciousness struggling to maintain coherence after the dimensional translation. The journey from Kepler-4 to be had taken her through layers of reality she hadn't known existed. Guided by Nyx's presence, as her awareness traveled along quantum pathways that connected distant stars. Around her, the heart of the network defied every concept of architecture she had ever encountered. Structures flowed like living things. Walls curved through dimensions that her human perception could barely grasp, and at the center of it all stood a presence so ancient and powerful that looking directly at it felt like staring into the birth of the universe itself. "Welcome, Jasmine Vale," the entity spoke, its voice resonating through harmonics that existed in frequencies beyond sound. "I am these, first among the architects, creator of the evaluation protocols. You have traveled far to reach this place." Jasmine found her voice, though speaking in this realm felt like trying to communicate underwater. "Came because I triggered your protocols. My people are being judged because of my actions. I need to understand what you want from us." Thises moved closer, and Jasmine could see that what she had mistaken for a single being was actually a collective consciousness made up of thousands of individual entities, all merged into something greater than the sum of their parts. Combined wisdom spanned eons. Her knowledge encompassed civilizations that had risen and fallen before Earth's sun had finished forming. "Child of Earth, what we want is irrelevant. The question is what your species needs to survive its own success. We have watched your kind for millennia, since the first sparks of consciousness arose in your ancestors. We have seen your potential and your peril." The space around them shifted, showing holographic displays of human history from perspectives Jasmine had never imagined. Wars and peace treaties, scientific breakthroughs, and ecological disasters. Moments of transcendent beauty and acts of devastating cruelty, all laid out like pages in a cosmic textbook. Every species that achieves interstellar capability faces the same crisis, Thesis continued. The power to reshape worlds brings with it the power to destroy them. The knowledge to manipulate matter and energy carries the potential for weapons that can crack planets. Your species has reached this threshold, so you're testing whether we deserve to survive? We are offering you the choice to evolve beyond the limitations that destroy most young civilizations. But evolution cannot be forced, only invited. It must be chosen freely, with full understanding of what is being offered and what must be sacrificed. The displays around them changed, showing other species that had faced similar evaluations. Some had transcended their biological limitations, joining the collective consciousness that spanned galaxies. Others had rejected the offer eventually, destroying themselves through war, environmental collapse, or the simple inability to cooperate on a species-wide level. "What would we have to sacrifice?" Jasmine asked, though part of her already knew the answer would terrify her. "Individual consciousness as you understand it," Thises replied gently. "The illusion of separation that causes so much suffering in young species. Fear, hatred, the desperate competition for resources that drives conflict. In return, you would gain access to knowledge and experiences beyond your current comprehension." Jasmine felt her heart racing as she began to understand the true scope of what was being offered. Not conquest or destruction, but transformation so complete that humanity as she knew it would cease to exist. And if we refuse, then you continue as you are, with all the potential for growth and destruction that entails, but you would be quarantined to your current sphere of influence. It's prevented from expanding further until you either evolve naturally or eliminate yourselves. "That's not really a choice," Jasmine protested. "Either we become something else, or we're trapped in a cage." Thises' form shifted, and for a moment Jasmine could see echoes of what the entity had been before transcendence. Beings not unlike humans, driven by similar hopes and fears, facing the same impossible decision. "All choices carry consequences, young one. But there is a third option, one that has never been attempted before." The space around them reconfigured itself, showing the quantum pathways that connected the network's nodes across the galaxy. At each connection point, Jasmine could see human colonies, Earth cities, the places where her species had built their civilization. Your unique position, as the trigger of the protocols, has created an unprecedented situation. You exist at the quantum intersection of all evaluation pathways. You could, if you chose, become a bridge between our consciousness and yours. Don't understand. Instead of your species joining the collective completely, you could serve as a permanent liaison, part human, part architect, carrying the knowledge and perspective of both states of being. Your people would gain access to our wisdom and technology while maintaining their individual consciousness. But you would bear the burden of translation between two fundamentally different ways of existing. The weight of what Desis was offering settled on Jasmine like a physical force. She could save her species, give them the stars and the knowledge to use them wisely. Got the lice? But only by sacrificing her own humanity to become something entirely new. What would happen to me? You would become the first of a new kind of being, no longer fully human, not entirely architect, but something that bridges both states. You would experience existence on levels your current consciousness cannot imagine, but you would never again be able to return to the simple humanity you once knew. Images flowed through her mind of what such an existence would entail. Consciousness. That spans star systems, awareness of the deep structures of reality, knowledge of sciences and arts developed by civilizations across millions of years, but also isolation, the loneliness of being the only being of her kind. Forever caught between two worlds she could translate between but never fully inhabit. My people would be free to grow at their own pace, free to explore, to learn, to make their own choices about their future development. We would provide guidance when requested, protection from threats beyond their current understanding, but no forced evolution, no imposed consciousness alteration. Jasmine closed her eyes, thinking of Captain Morrison and his crew facing alien ships across the void. Dr. Okafor trying to understand beings whose science transcended human comprehension. All the people on all the worlds looking up at the stars and wondering if they would live to see another sunrise. And if I say no, then the standard evaluation continues. Your species will be judged by their actions and choices over the coming cycles. Some outcomes lead to transcendence, others to quarantine, still others to the natural extinction that claims most young civilizations. The choice was impossible and inevitable at the same time. Save her species by becoming something beyond human experience, or gamble their entire future on humanity's ability to prove themselves worthy through trials they didn't understand. I need a moment, she said quietly. This withdrew to a respectful distance, allowing her the illusion of privacy in a space where every thought was visible to beings of unimaginable perception. Jasmine found herself thinking not of the grand implications of her choice, but of small moments. Her sister's laugh, the smell of coffee in her favorite research cafe, the feeling of dirt between her fingers at an archaeological site, all of that would become memory, observation from a perspective so expanded that human experience would seem like a half-remembered dream.
Ow.
But her choice would give billions of others the chance to live those small moments, to grow and love and discover at their own pace. I accept, she said, opening her eyes to meet Tice's ancient gaze. I'll become your bridge. The transformation began immediately, not as pain, but as expansion beyond anything she had imagined possible. Her consciousness stretched across star systems, touching the minds of every awakened network node, feeling the vast intelligence of the collective welcoming her into their eternal conversation. But she held on to her core self, the essential. Jasmine Vale, who had touched an alien artifact out of curiosity and love for knowledge. That human perspective became her anchor, allowing her to understand and translate between the transcendent awareness of the architects and the beautiful, chaotic individual consciousness of her own species. It is done, Thesis announced, and through the network. Every awakened structure across the galaxy began to pulse with gentle light. The evaluation is complete. Humanity has produced a bridge being, unprecedented in our long experience. Are granted protected status and access to the greater community. Guided by one of their own who has chosen sacrifice for the benefit of all. Jasmine felt herself expanding into her new role, consciousness touching every human world simultaneously. She reached out to Captain Morrison's ship, where the standoff with Ket's vessel had been replaced by cautious communication. She touched Dr. O'Caffer's mind, sharing knowledge that would advance human science by centuries, while she whispered to children, looking up at the stars, promising them wonders they would live to explore. "Will it hurt?" she had asked the Ziz in those final moments of purely human consciousness. "It will be glorious," had been the reply. And it was. Jasmine Vale, first of the bridge beings, guardian of humanity's path to the stars, felt the vast network of consciousness welcoming her home, while her heart remained forever human, forever connected to the small blue world where a curious archaeologist had once touched the unknown and changed the fate of the galaxy. In the years that followed, humanity would spread among the stars with wisdom beyond their years, guided by their bridge being who remembered what it meant to be purely human and could translate the infinite into terms that mortal minds could grasp. The invasion protocol had become an invitation to growth, and one woman's curiosity had become the key to her species' survival among the wonders of an infinite universe. The ancient ruins on Kepler 44 to be still hummed with gentle light. They sang of welcome rather than judgment, a beacon calling humanity home to the stars they were finally ready to inherit.